The call came at 2019 in the morning. I know the exact time because I'd been awake already, sitting in the recliner by the window with a glass of water I hadn't touched, watching the neighbor's sprinkler system kick on and off across the street. That's what getting old does to you. You stop sleeping through the night and start noticing things. Sprinkler timers, the way the street looks under yellow light, the particular silence of a house that used to have more people in it. My phone lit up on the side table. I didn't recognize the number. Area code 614, Columbus, Ohio. I didn't know anyone in Columbus. I almost let it go to voicemail. I picked up on the fourth ring. Dad. Just that one word. And the world stopped. It was my son's voice. My son, who had been buried in Riverside Memorial Cemetery in Dayton for 3 years, 2 months and 11 days. I said nothing. I couldn't. My throat closed like someone had reached in and grabbed it. Dad, are you there? Same voice. Same slight drag on the word there. The way he always stretched it out. The way his mother used to tease him about it. I sat there in that recliner gripping the phone so hard my knuckles went white, and I thought, I'm losing my mind. This is what losing your mind feels like. Who is this? I finally managed. A pause. Then, I'm not him, but I think I might be the reason he's gone. My son's name was Daniel. He was 34 years old when he died. A car accident on I-75 South, just past the Miamisburg exit, on a Tuesday afternoon in October. The police report said he drifted across the center line. No alcohol, no drugs, no phone activity. They called it driver fatigue. I never fully believed that. Daniel had driven that stretch of highway 1,000 times. He knew every curve of it. But I buried him. I stood at that grave in a suit that was too tight across the shoulders, and I watched them lower my boy into the ground, and I told myself, accept what you cannot change. That's what my wife Martha always said. She passed 4 years before Daniel. Breast cancer. Quick and terrible. After Daniel, I was alone in a way I hadn't known was possible. I'm 67 years old. I'm a retired civil engineer. I spent 31 years designing drainage systems and retention ponds for the state of Ohio, which sounds boring and is, mostly, but it's work that matters. I live in the same house in Kettering I bought with Martha in 1987. The oak tree in the backyard is taller than the roof now. I am not a man who believes in ghosts. So when I got that call at 2019 in the morning, I didn't think Daniel came back. I thought, something is very wrong, and I need to understand what it is. The young man on the phone told me his name was Caleb. He said he was 22. He said he'd gotten my number from an old address book he'd found. A small green book, spiral bound, the kind you'd buy at a drugstore. He said the book had belonged to his mother. What's your mother's name? I asked. Diane Marsh, he said. She passed away 6 weeks ago. Ovarian cancer. I sat very still. Diane Marsh. I turned that name over in my mind like a coin, looking for something familiar. Nothing. I don't know anyone by that name, I said. She knew Daniel, he said. She knew him before you did, I think. Before he was Daniel Calloway, when he was just Danny to her. There was something careful in the way he spoke. Measured. Like he'd rehearsed this, practiced it in a mirror or on long drives, trying to find the right words for something that didn't have right words. What is it you're trying to tell me? I asked. Another pause. Longer this time. I think Daniel was my father, he said. And I think someone made sure he never knew I existed. I didn't sleep the rest of that night. I sat in the kitchen with the overhead light on and a yellow legal pad in front of me, and I wrote down everything Caleb had told me. His age, his mother's name, the city she'd lived in, Columbus first, then later Akron, then Columbus again, the green address book with my number in it, my name written in ink she'd apparently kept for years. He didn't push me. He said he understood if I needed time. He left me his number, the same Columbus number, and said I could call whenever I was ready, or never, if that's what I decided. I called him back at 6:15 that morning. "Tell me everything," I said. Diane Marsh had met Daniel in the spring of 2001. She was 23, working the front desk at an architectural firm in downtown Dayton. Daniel was 25, doing some subcontracting work through a firm he'd just joined. They dated for about 8 months. From what Caleb knew, which was limited, because his mother hadn't spoken easily about this, it was serious, or at least it had felt serious to her. Then Daniel met someone else, a woman named Vanessa. They moved fast, Daniel and Vanessa, engaged within 6 months, married the following year. I remembered that period. I remembered meeting Vanessa, thinking she was polished in a way that made me slightly uneasy. The kind of polish that looks like confidence, but might be something else. I kept that to myself. Martha liked her fine. What Daniel didn't know, what Diane apparently kept from him, was that she was pregnant when they split. Caleb was born in November of 2001. 7 pounds, 4 ounces. His mother raised him alone in a one-bedroom apartment on the east side of Columbus. She worked. She managed. She never contacted Daniel. She said she didn't want to disrupt his life, Caleb told me. She said he'd moved on and it wouldn't be fair. I listened to this and felt something old and hot move through me. Not at Diane. I didn't know Diane. Not entirely at Daniel, who hadn't known. What I felt sitting there in my kitchen at 6 in the morning was the slow unfurling of something that had been kept from everyone, including my son, for his entire adult life. Did she ever try to reach him? I asked. Ever? At any point? Caleb hesitated. Once, he said, about 4 years before he died. She said she sent him a letter to his work address. Did he respond? She never heard back. She assumed he got it and chose not to respond. She accepted that. I set my pen down on the legal pad. What if he never received it? I said. Daniel and Vanessa divorced in 2014. It was quiet, as divorces go. No children. They sold the house in Centerville and went their separate ways. Daniel moved into an apartment near the University of Dayton and seemed, from the outside, to be doing fine. He called me every Sunday. We'd meet for lunch at this diner on Far Hills Avenue, the kind of place with laminated menus and good pie. He seemed okay. A little quiet sometimes, but okay. He died 16 months after the divorce was finalized. After Caleb's call, I started thinking about that letter Diane said she'd sent to Daniel's work address. The timing. She'd sent it roughly 4 years before Daniel died, which would put it around 2018, the middle of his marriage to Vanessa. Vanessa, who had worked in the same office building as Daniel for the first 2 years of their marriage before getting a position at a larger firm downtown. Vanessa, who had access. I'm a careful man. I spent my career reading site surveys and soil reports and engineering documents, finding the thing that doesn't add up, the number that's off by just enough to cause a problem. I know what it looks like when something has been deliberately removed from a picture. I picked up the phone and called my nephew Kevin. He's a paralegal, works for a firm in Cincinnati. Smart kid. Knows how to find things. I need a favor, I said. And I need you to not ask me too many questions right now. It took Kevin 3 weeks. In that time, I met Caleb in person. He drove up from Columbus on a Saturday morning. I watched him pull into my driveway from the front window. A beat-up Honda Civic, gray, one of the back taillights slightly cracked. He was tall. Dark hair, cut short. The way he walked from the car to the front door. This particular deliberateness, like he was always slightly aware of taking up space. I'd seen that walk before. Daniel walked like that. I opened the door before he could knock. We stood there for a moment, just looking at each other. I don't know what he saw. I know what I saw, a young man who had his father's jawline and his grandmother Martha's eyes and absolutely no idea what to do with his hands. Come inside, I said. I made coffee. We sat at the kitchen table for 4 hours. He showed me a photograph his mother had kept. Daniel and Diane together at what looked like a 4th of July cookout, arms around each other, squinting into the sun. Daniel was 25 in that photo. Young. Easy in a way I hadn't remembered him being after certain points in his life. Caleb told me about growing up. His mother worked as a medical billing specialist. They moved twice, both times within Columbus. She'd been healthy most of his life. The cancer diagnosis came when he was 19, and the next 3 years were hard in the quiet, grinding way that illness is hard. He'd deferred college twice to help care for her. He was working at a warehouse distribution center now, trying to figure out the next step. She kept that address book in her nightstand, he said. Your name was in it. She'd written it down. I think from an old Christmas card, maybe. She had a stack of old cards in a shoebox. He paused. I almost didn't call. I didn't want to bother you. You're not bothering me, I said, and I meant it in a way I hadn't felt in a long time, like something I thought was permanently closed had opened, just slightly, and the air coming through it was cold, but real. Kevin called on a Thursday evening. I found the letter, he said. I sat down. The letter Diane had sent in 2018 had gone to Daniel's office address at the engineering firm where he'd worked at the time. Kevin, two contacts I probably don't want to know about, had been able to establish that the letter had been received, signed for, in fact, by a front desk employee, and forwarded to Daniel's department mailbox. It had never been opened. The firm had gone through a records digitization project in 2020 after Daniel died, and in the process of clearing out old office materials, someone had documented a collection of unopened mail from inactive employees. Daniel's name appeared on the list. Someone intercepted it, Kevin said. Before he could see it. How confident are you? I asked. There's no proof of who, but the letter was received and never opened. Daniel wasn't the type to ignore something like that based on what you've told me. And... Kevin paused. There's something else. He told me that Vanessa's sister, a woman named Gretchen, had worked as an office manager at a different company in the same building during that period. The building had a shared mailroom with a single sorting station. She would have had access to outgoing and incoming mail across multiple suites, Kevin said. Unofficially. People knew each other. Favors got done. I said nothing for a long moment. Richard, Kevin said. He's the only person who still calls me Richard. Everyone else calls me Rick. What are you planning to do with this? I don't know yet, I said, but I'm going to do something. I need to tell you something about my relationship with Daniel in those final years of his life. It was good, mostly. We were close in the way that fathers and adult sons sometimes manage to be after the mother is gone. A closeness born partly of necessity, partly of genuine affection, partly of the understanding that you're each other's closest living connection to someone you both lost. We had our rhythms, Sunday calls, lunch at the diner, the occasional ball game. But there was something I'd always sensed in him that I couldn't name, a specific kind of loneliness. Not depression exactly, more like incompleteness, like a man who had the outline of a life but felt that something was missing from the interior of it. He'd talked about wanting children. He and Vanessa had tried, briefly, but it hadn't happened. And then the marriage had gone another direction. After the divorce, he dated some, but nothing serious. He mentioned once, over pie at the diner, that he sometimes felt like he'd missed something, like he'd been standing slightly to the left of where he was supposed to be and hadn't known how to correct it. I thought about that a lot. After Caleb's call. Daniel had a son. Had had a son for 22 years without knowing it. A boy who had his jawline and his grandmother's eyes and his particular way of walking into a room, and someone had made sure that Daniel never got the letter that would have told him. I don't know if knowing would have changed anything. I don't know if Daniel would have been able to build something with Diane or with Caleb, or if the timing would have been wrong and they'd have remained strangers. But he deserved the choice. He deserved to know. Someone took that from him. I drove to Cincinnati in early February. I'm not going to say everything I did or exactly how I did it. What I will say is that I didn't do anything illegal. I'm 67 years old. I'm careful. I did what careful people do. I gathered information methodically. I documented it, and I placed it in front of people whose job it is to act on it. Gretchen had moved to Cincinnati after the pandemic, remarried, living in a very nice house in Hyde Park, working as an operations director for a property management company. A company that, it turned out, had some significant questions surrounding its handling of tenant security deposits and certain financial disclosures that the Ohio Attorney General's office had apparently been quietly looking at for some time. Kevin knew someone who knew someone. I'm not proud of leveraging that, but I'm also not sorry. What happened over the following 4 weeks, Gretchen was contacted as part of an expanded inquiry. In the course of that inquiry, under conditions I wasn't present for, she apparently disclosed the matter of the letter. Voluntarily, Kevin told me, like she'd been carrying it and was tired. She'd taken the letter from the mailroom in 2018. She'd told Vanessa. Vanessa had told her to get rid of it. Gretchen had held on to it, she couldn't say exactly why, and eventually thrown it away when they moved out of their respective apartments. There was nothing criminal in the letter's interception, technically. No law that covered it neatly. But there was something that mattered more to me than legal precision. There was the truth. I drove back to Dayton on a Saturday. I stopped at the diner on Far Hills Avenue, our diner, Daniel's and mine, and I sat in the corner booth and ordered the apple pie and coffee that Daniel always ordered, and I sat there for a long time. The waitress who'd known us for years came over and refilled my coffee without being asked. She'd been at Daniel's funeral. She didn't say anything, just put her hand briefly on my shoulder as she passed, the way people do when they know. I thought about what Kevin had asked me. What was I going to do with this? I'd been asking myself the same question. Gretchen wasn't going to face criminal charges for what she did. Vanessa was living in Arizona now, I'd learned, working in real estate, apparently doing fine. The world was going to keep moving. But Caleb was 22 years old and working in a warehouse and had spent his whole life with a blank space where a father should have been. His mother had kept a phone number in a green address book in her nightstand for 20 years, and that number was mine. I called him from the diner parking lot. I found out what happened to the letter, I said. I told him, all of it. I didn't soften it and I didn't over-dramatize it. I just told him plainly, the way you tell someone a true thing that's hard to hear. He was quiet for a long time after I finished. So, he never knew, Caleb said finally. He never knew, I said. It wasn't his choice, and it wasn't yours. Someone else made that decision for both of you. Another long quiet. Then he said something that hit me so hard I had to close my eyes. Do you think he would have wanted to know me? I thought about my son. I thought about that conversation at the diner, the pie. Daniel saying he felt like he'd been standing slightly to the left of where he was supposed to be. I thought about the photograph of him at 25, arm around Diane, squinting into the 4th of July sun, young and easy. I think, I said carefully, that knowing you would have been one of the best things that ever happened to him. Caleb moved to Dayton in April. Not because of me. He'd been looking to relocate anyway, and a warehouse logistics position came open here that paid better than what he had in Columbus. But I'd be lying if I said the proximity wasn't part of it. We talked enough by then that it made sense. He's renting an apartment about 2 miles from my house. On Sunday mornings, sometimes he comes over and I make eggs, and we sit at the kitchen table and drink coffee and talk. He's enrolled part-time at Sinclair Community College now, working toward a degree in logistics management. He's a serious kid, methodical. He makes lists, checks things off. His mother raised him right. A few weeks ago, I showed him the oak tree in the backyard, told him Daniel used to climb it when he was 10, 11 years old, before it got too tall. Caleb stood there looking up at it for a moment, and I saw something move across his face that I recognized. That specific expression of reaching for something that isn't quite there but close enough to feel. He didn't say anything, neither did I. We went back inside and I poured more coffee and we sat back down at the kitchen table, and outside the window the morning light came in at that particular flat angle it gets in early spring, and for the first time in a long while the house felt like it had the right number of people in it. I want to say one thing clearly before I'm done. I'm not telling this story because I want credit for anything. I'm not telling it to make Gretchen or Vanessa into villains, though what they did was a cruelty that rippled forward 20 years in ways they may not have fully considered. I'm not telling it because I think it ends cleanly, because it doesn't. Daniel is still gone. Caleb still grew up without a father. Those are facts that don't change. I'm telling it because of something Caleb said to me recently. We were talking about his mother, about the way she'd kept my number all those years, and he said, I think she hoped that someday someone would pick up. That's all any of us can do, really. Keep the number. Hope someone picks up. At 22:19 in the morning, 3 years after I buried my son, a young man with my son's voice called me from Columbus, Ohio. I almost didn't answer. I'm glad I picked up on the fourth ring. Don't wait for the call to come to you. If you're carrying something, a truth, a question, a name written in an old address book, don't wait 3 years. Don't wait too late. 2020. Pick up the phone. Knock on the door. Find the person who needs to know. The truth doesn't expire, but time does. I've been sitting with this for a while now, trying to figure out what it all means. Not in a grand philosophical way. I'm an engineer. I don't think in grand philosophical ways. I think in cause and effect, in what went in and what came out the other end. Here's what I keep coming back to. Every single thing that happened in this story was a consequence of a choice someone made. Diane chose to stay silent for 20 years. Gretchen chose to take that letter out of a mailroom. Vanessa chose to let that choice stand. Caleb chose to dial a number he found in a dead woman's address book at 2 in the morning. And I chose to pick up on the fourth ring instead of letting it go to voicemail. None of those choices were made in a vacuum. They each had weight, and that weight traveled forward in time and landed on people who never saw it coming. I think about Gretchen a lot, actually. More than Vanessa. Because Vanessa made a selfish decision and walked away from it. But Gretchen kept the letter, couldn't throw it out, held on to it through at least one move, maybe two, until finally she did get rid of it. And then years later, under pressure she wasn't expecting, she told the truth. That took something, a different kind of something than courage maybe, more like exhaustion, the kind that comes from carrying a thing too long. But she told it. I'm not going to stand here and say the truth, set everything right. Daniel is still gone. Caleb still spent 22 years without a father. Those are permanent facts. The truth didn't undo them. What the truth did was give Caleb somewhere to stand. He came to me not knowing what he'd find. A door slammed in his face maybe, or a skeptical old man who didn't want complications. Instead, he found a kitchen table and a cup of coffee and a grandfather who recognized his father's walk from 30 feet away. That's not nothing. That's actually quite a lot. And here's what I want to say about intelligence. Not the kind that scores well on tests, but the kind that actually serves you. Real intelligence, the kind worth having, is the ability to stay curious when every instinct tells you to shut down. When that call came at 2:19 in the morning, the easy thing would have been to assume a wrong number and go back to watching the sprinkler run. I almost did. The harder thing was to pick up and then, harder still, to keep asking questions after I hung up. Daniel deserved someone who kept asking questions. I didn't do it while he was alive. I accepted the surface of things, the Sunday calls, the diner lunches, the fine. That's something I have to live with, but I could do it after. And I did. The moral part of this, the part I think matters most, isn't what happened to Gretchen or Vanessa. It's what Caleb did with what he had. His mother raised him on her own, in a one-bedroom apartment, working medical billing, moving twice. He deferred college to sit with her through illness. He worked a warehouse job without bitterness about it. He drove to a stranger's house in a city he didn't know and knocked on the door with nothing but a name from an old address book and the belief that the truth was worth finding. That's moral courage. Not dramatic courage, not the sword and shield kind, the quiet kind, the kind that shows up in a beat-up Honda Civic on a Saturday morning and stands at a door and waits. I'm a different person than I was before that call. Not transformed. I'm too old and too stubborn for transformation, but adjusted, recalibrated. There's a young man with my son's jawline sitting at my kitchen table on Sunday mornings now, and the house has the right number of people in it, and I understand that this didn't happen by accident. It happened because someone kept a number, and someone else picked up.